What's up everyone? Alex here. In this video, I'm gonna ask a much asked question about the Trails of Cold Steel series. Which one should you start with? If you look for the answer yourself, you'll likely wind up with a variety of different answers depending on whether you're talking to a longtime fan of the series or even its publishers. And even within these circles, there's quite a bit of debate as to what the right answer is, which can lead to even more frustration and eventually just giving up on trying the series entirely. Much like when I answered the same question with the Yakuza series before, I'm presenting you with multiple answers here, along with every piece of information that supports each answer to help you make an informed decision and figure out how you'd like to approach this incredible series. You might ask what qualifies me to answer this question, and my answer is, well, it's not just me. I've compiled hundreds of forum posts, conversations with fans of the series, emails with publishers, and a whole lot of research that serve to support the answers presented in this video. In other words, this video contains the most comprehensive answers to this question, and my hope is that by the time you finish watching this video, that you'll have a better understanding of the Trails of Cold Steel series and where you want to go from here. To start, I'm going to present the not-so-obvious answer for newcomers. Start with Trails in the Sky series, then play Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki, and then play through the Cold Steel series. This would be a recommendation of the most hardcore fans of the series, and therefore needs a bit of explanation. You see, Trails of Cold Steel is part of a larger arc of games that fall under the Legend of Heroes series, specifically under the fan moniker Trails games. There are multiple Trails series that belong under this umbrella. Trails in the Sky, comprised of 3 chapters, Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki, both of which are 1 game each, and Trails of Cold Steel, comprised of 4 parts. This is important to know because the Trails games are interconnected in many ways, with characters often showing up in other games and certain story beats affecting other series. With regards to the Cold Steel series, you'll find that later games will feature characters from the Trails in the Sky games, and both Zero and Ao no Kiseki, which also spoils the plots of all of these games. It's because of this that the Trails of Cold Steel series serves as a finale to these storylines, eventually concluding in Trails of Cold Steel 4. One of the hurdles with attempting this approach is that both Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki do not have official English translations available as of this video's release, and there hasn't been a word from any Western publisher who wants to port and localize these to a modern platform. But in my opinion, the biggest hurdle for anyone who'd want to consider going this route is the amount of time it'll take to find fan localizations of both games, applying said localization patches, finding a way to play these games with said patches, and playing through all the games mentioned. Also, each game clocks in at about 40 to 100 hours, depending on how meticulous you go through each game. Assuming it'd take you 50 hours to play through each game, including both Zero and Ao no Kiseki, and you'd have to spend at least 250 hours before you can even start the first Trails of Cold Steel. That's the equivalent of spending a little over 40 hours a week for a little over a month to play through every single game before starting Trails of Cold Steel. But don't fret, I actually think the next answer is the more reasonable one of the bunch we have in this video. Start with the first Trails of Cold Steel. Some hardcore fans do recommend this option, and it is my personal recommendation out of the bunch. The disadvantages of this approach are obvious. Some context from the previous series will be lost, and you might even wind up misunderstanding characters from the other series due to lack of context. You'll even be privy to certain plot twists from the other Trails games as the other games' outcomes become increasingly important to the Cold Steel series, potentially spoiling any future planned playthroughs you have of the other games. The advantages, however, outweigh the disadvantages. Thus far, the games in Trails of Cold Steel, while spoiling other games' plot twists, do a good job of keeping the player abreast of these plot elements that are important to know for the Cold Steel series. Knowing that both Zero and Ao no Kiseki were never ported to the West, Falcom even decided to add scenes and dialogue to Cold Steel to address the absence of said games for Western audiences, giving players just enough context to understand what they add to the storyline. Best of all, while you don't necessarily have full understanding of the previous Trails games, Cold Steel does give you a glimpse of what happens in each. And, should you decide to learn more about how these events transpired, you have the option to go back and play said games, much like watching a series of prequels to a popular movie trilogy. It's a much smaller level of commitment, which will allow you to see if you enjoy the way the stories are told, which then allows you to further expand what you want to play without getting overwhelmed with a potential time commitment. I'd imagine if people go this route, that they would certainly want to play the other games eventually, but you gotta take that step first, and starting with a first Cold Steel, in my opinion, is the best way into the series. As an addendum to this suggestion, you can always watch summaries of the Trails in the Sky series, Zero and Ao on YouTube to catch up on what happened. It's certainly faster than having to play through each of the games individually. The last recommendation is the publisher's recommendation, which is to play the latest game in the series. Depending on when you watch this video, that's gonna be either Trails of Cold Steel 3 or 4, and if it happens to be the latter game, I'd say don't even try. The reason for this is quite simple. The fourth game is the final game in this entire story arc, wrapping up the stories from Trails in the Sky, Ao and Zero, and the Cold Steel series, and was meant to be played as a follow-up to Trails of Cold Steel 3. That being said, I've played through at least 30 hours of Trails of Cold Steel 3, review coming soon, and I can safely say that while you can start with said game, I can't wholeheartedly recommend doing so. While the story does a decent enough job of onboarding new players into the game, Trails of Cold Steel 3 also teaches the player a lot within a short span of time. This is in comparison to Trails of Cold Steel, which had a much slower pace, allowing players to get used to the feel of battle and what kinds of party maintenance you'll need to do between quests. New players might feel out of place in certain scenes, especially when old party members from the past two games show up, with these reunions feeling anticlimactic. And there you have it. I've given you at least 3 ways to approach the Cold Steel series, in the hopes of you taking the chance and trying out one or all of the games mentioned. As a reminder, there are plenty of ways to take in a series, and my hope is that with the things you've learned in this video, that you've found a way to get into this amazing series of games yourself. For longtime fans or even newcomers to the series, I would like to hear your stories about how you learned of the series and how you yourself got into it. Post your stories in the comments below and let's talk about it. Thanks for watching, and have a great gaming week.